This video lecture has been produced using artificial intelligence with the supervision of Belhaven faculty.
Welcome. We often ask, how do schools truly get better? I'm not talking about one-off initiatives, but about creating real, lasting, meaningful change. Well, that is the central question behind the continuous school improvement framework, and that's what we're going to break down today. We're going to explore its core philosophy, the essential questions that really drive it, and the cyclical process that turns good intentions into actual systemic growth. So let's dive in. All right, first things first, let's get on the same page about the core philosophy here. The whole idea is to shift our thinking away from isolated short-term fixes and toward a much more holistic and, importantly, an ongoing process of growth. So what really makes this philosophy different? You see, a lot of traditional models treat improvement like it's a straight line. You make a plan, you do the plan, you check on it, and you're done. But the continuous school improvement philosophy completely reframes this into a continuous loop. Plan, implement, evaluate, and improve. They aren't just steps in a sequence. They're part of a constant interconnected cycle. And that's not just a small tweak in language. It's a fundamental shift in how we approach school evolution. Okay, so now we get to the real heart of the framework. The entire process is built around 5 essential questions. These questions guide a school's improvement journey from the very beginning all the way through. These 5 questions are really the engine that drives this whole framework. They guide everything, from self-reflection and deep data analysis to taking concrete action. You can think of them as the prompts that make sure every single improvement effort is comprehensive, backed by data, and genuinely purposeful. Okay, let's pause here for a moment, because this diagram, figure 2.1, is basically the roadmap for the entire framework. If you look on the left, you see those core questions laid out. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? And is what we are doing making a difference? And notice how each of those questions branches out into more specific inquiries and processes. For instance, where are we now breaks down into understanding our student learning, our school processes, and our beliefs. This diagram visually connects all the dots, showing us how we move logically from understanding our current state to planning for the future and then evaluating our progress. It's really the entire system in a single picture. So, the actual work of the framework begins with a really deep and honest analysis of the present. And this crucial first stage is guided by those first 2 essential questions we just saw on the diagram. So, that first question, where are we now, really pushes us to create a rich, comprehensive data profile of our school. And this is so much more than just test scores. It's about getting a holistic view that includes everything from demographics and school culture to student learning data and a really deep look at the school's internal processes. Things like curriculum delivery, teacher collaboration, and how we communicate with parents. Then, the second question pushes us to move beyond simply describing our situation and into analyzing it. This is where we start digging into the relationships between all those different data points to really understand the root causes of our current state, both what's working and what's not. And this Venn diagram, figure 2.2, is just a brilliant way to visualize why that deep analysis is so critical. See how the 4 key areas, demographics, school processes, perceptions, and student learning, all overlap? The real insights, the real aha moments, live in those intersections. For example, that overlap between student learning and school processes, that's where you can see which specific programs are actually making a difference. You just can't understand any one of these circles in isolation. A complete picture only emerges when we see how they all connect and influence one another. So, once we have a really clear, data-informed understanding of our present, the framework then guides us toward defining and planning for a desired future. The third question, where do we want to be, is all about setting a destination. And this is absolutely foundational. Without a clearly articulated and, crucially, a shared mission and vision, any improvement efforts are just going to be fragmented. This step is about making sure everyone, teachers, administrators, students, parents, is pulling in the same direction, guided by a common purpose. And that leads us right into the 4th question, which is all about action. This is the step that translates that shared vision into a concrete, practical plan. We're detailing the specific strategies, the resources we'll need, the leadership structures, and clear timelines for implementation. Now we can really start to see how all these questions come together. The most important point here is to understand that this is not a one-time project. It is a dynamic, continuous cycle of improvement. And here we have it, the final critical question. Is what we are doing making a difference? This is what closes the loop and makes the whole thing a cycle. It really underscores that evaluation isn't some endpoint, it's the fuel for the next cycle of improvement. It's an ongoing process of monitoring and reflecting that feeds directly back into our plan. Figure 2.3 gives us a fantastic visual of this entire cycle in action. Just look at the center. Everything revolves around the vision, mission, values, and beliefs. Then, as you move around the circle, you can see that classic plan, do, study, adjust model. And those 5 questions we've been talking about are mapped right onto this cycle. For instance, planning involves asking, where do we want to be? While the study phase involves asking, is what we are doing making a difference? It's a truly dynamic system where evaluation and adjustment are constantly feeding back into new planning. This ensures the work is always evolving and responsive. Now, Figure 2.5 gives us another way to look at this workflow. It lays it out in a more linear fashion, but the process itself is still cyclical. We start on the left with assess needs. That's building the data profile we talked about. This then informs the shared vision, which leads to the plan to implement. But the crucial part is that final box, monitor and evaluate. See those arrows looping back? It's not a final step, it's a constant process that informs every single other stage. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and see how this framework can be applied in a really practical way, using structured self-assessment to help foster a genuine culture of improvement. So how does the school actually know where it stands in all this? The Continuous Improvement Continuum is a really powerful self-assessment tool. It provides a 5-point scale, as you can see here. A school might be at the reactive stage, basically just putting out fires. The goal is to move along this continuum towards systemic, where you have solid systems in place, and ultimately to proactive, where the school is actively shaping its own future. It's a great tool for having an honest conversation about progress. And this isn't just some one-off exercise. This annual self-assessment becomes a powerful vehicle for discussion and growth. It helps align the staff's understanding, it allows you to celebrate progress, it helps you set meaningful goals, and it keeps the momentum going within that larger improvement cycle we've been talking about. So, as we wrap up, let's reflect on our first key takeaway. Continuous school improvement is a comprehensive, ongoing cycle. It is fundamentally not a one-time initiative or some checklist you just complete and put on a shelf. So why is a framework like this so important? Well, think of it as the blueprints for building a better school. It brings structure to what can be a really complex process. It ensures that every decision is grounded in data. And maybe most importantly, it gets everyone in the school community working from the same set of plans toward that shared vision. And that brings us to our final and perhaps most important takeaway. The real power of this framework lies in its 5 essential questions. They seem simple, but they are profound. By consistently asking and answering, where are we now? How did we get here? Where do we want to be? How will we get there? And is it making a difference? Any school can transform itself into a true continuous learning organization. One that is always growing, always improving, and always focused on what matters most: student success.